Winter is coming for Imitation Khaleesi because Bryan Freedman just said that Blake Lively is about to be deposed this month and he is going to question her under oath. So if you thought that Baldoni was out in the woods and that this trial was done, it ain't done yet. It ain't done until the fat lady sings. And so far, Blake Lively is warming up her vocals. Get ready. We have a lot to break down today. I'm ready to dive in and I hope you are too. Let's get it. You're listening to No Filter with Zack Peter, your go-to source for all the latest pop culture and reality TV tea, served fresh all week long. Now, let's dive in. What's going on, everybody? Welcome on in, welcome on in, welcome on in. Happy, what's today? Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Today is June 11th. We have a lot that we're going to get into. I know everyone's really excited about all of the Blake Lively Baldoni drama legal saga as it continues to unfold. Baldoni's team and Bryan Freedman have made it clear that they plan to pursue their litigation against Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, which to me makes it seem like maybe Leslie Sloan and New York Times are officially off the hook, but we'll see where that goes. We'll get into Bryan Freedman's interview with TMZ. And then I have a guest on. His name is Shawn Fahey. He goes by Shawn on the right, and we're going to talk about everything that's going on here in Los Angeles. I know there have been a lot of questions, and there's a lot that's going on here, especially here in downtown LA. And like I did with the LA fires and like I've done with many other issues that have bled into pop culture. I've talked about them on the show. So we will get into that later in the show so you can have all the fun pop culture stuff, and then we'll get into all the other craziness later on in the show. But I promise it's still going to be fun. We're going to try to keep it light and respectful, and hopefully we can come together more than we fight in the live chat. So keep it respectful. Let's have some lerve in the club and get into all of the yummy goodness. Oh my God, what a week. Sullivan is not getting worse, but he's not getting better. Hoping we have some answers from the vet today. We'll see where he's at, but what a time, what a mighty good time. A mighty good time. Also, just a reminder for everybody, if you haven't done so yet, get your tickets. Get your tickets to this Activated tour. I'm going on a live podcast tour, so we're going to be breaking down all of this yummy discovery. I mean, Blake Lively's deposition is happening this month. We'll get into that. We'll get into all of it. I'll be on stage with Andy from Popcorn Planet, Donna Bowling, Colonel Kurtz, the Sidley twins, Louis Levanti, Christy Cook from Spill Sesh. So many incredible guests, special guests like Netflix's Chloe Veach, Jenny McCarthy, Real Housewives of Dallas star Leanne Locken in Dallas. So lots of fun guests. It's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be a good time. Good time. Come on. Yeah. Come on. So go to nofilterlive.com. Get your tickets at nofilterlive.com. Also, just wanted to remind everybody, if you want to order merch, you can go to nofiltermerch.com. We are having a charity campaign from now until this Sunday, June 15th, which is my 32nd birthday. I'm turning 32 on Sunday. And from now until Sunday, 50% of all merch proceeds will be going to Home Life Community to support individuals with autism, and specifically our Justice for Justin shirts that we just restocked temporarily. Those 100% of the proceeds I will be donating to nomore.org, which is Justin Baldoni's foundation to help survivors, to bring awareness and help end DV and SV in the name of real survivors. So you can head on down to nofiltermerch.com, stock up on your merch. We have Do I Look Like I Just Fell Out of a Coconut Tree shirts. We have Never With Teeth shirts. We have Zack Peters, My Lawyer. We have Justice for Justin. We have Zactivated. We have lots of fun merch now. So you can go get it. Yes, Donna's birthday is tomorrow. Tomorrow. Yeah, Donna and I are both Geminis. Yay. Laura says, my shirt will be here today. Yay. Russ says he's 52 today. Yay. Kelly says, I always appreciate your thoughtful and reasonable approach to these topics. No paranoia, no conspiracies, but focus on the truth and not blind truth in the media. Listen, we've been lied to by the media way too many times. it's time we wake up, right? And we kind of sift through the BS. So we're going to do a lot more of that today. But let's start with Bryan Freedman's interview in TMZ that came this week following the groundbreaking judgment from Judge Lehman about the Blake Lively's dismissal of the defamation claims. So let's watch, just to recap everybody, the defamation claims have been dismissed, but not the entire lawsuit altogether. They do have an opportunity to amend the alleged extortion from Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. So I think it's like breach of contract, breach of implied covenant, torturous interference. So there are a couple of claims that they can still continue forward and pursue against Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, which Bryan Freedman says that they plan to do. Here is a clip from Bryan Freedman's interview on TMZ this week. Let's tune in.
Look at the facts. Look at what's been shown. Look at the receipts. Look at the video.
What's next for you?
I mean, next for us is I'm really hoping that she doesn't drop her lawsuit.
Why would she?
Because she's on a false victory tour, and she's afraid of the truth.
Boom. He said, as many of us have predicted, she's very likely going to be dropped or wanting to drop her lawsuit against Baldoni because, as Freedman is saying, she's afraid of the truth. What is the truth? You can't handle the truth.
And the truth is, going to be shown through depositions, which is what's going to be next. I've noticed her deposition. It's set in June. We're going to see if she's going to appear at that deposition or not.
So it seems like there's a little trepidation on whether or not she's going to be actually showing up at her deposition. He doesn't say exactly when, but we're now June 11th. He said the deposition is scheduled for June sometime. So we got 2.5 weeks before. So she's getting deposed within the next 2.5 weeks. Jackie says, never with teeth, hilarious. Yes. Okay, let's get back to Freedman.
And we're going to proceed forward with the case, and we're going to show that there was no sexual harassment, and we're going to show that there was no smear campaign.
Obviously, the defamation was dismissed with prejudice, so you can't refile that. But
very important, the defamation claim was dismissed with prejudice. So a lot of people were asking, well, what happens if she's found to be lying at trial and she can't prove her harassment claims? Her case was dismissed with prejudice, which means Baldoni and his team cannot bring forth those claims against her in the future. They've been dismissed.
Do you plan to refile any of the other? I think there are 3 other claims that you could refile, correct?
There's actually 4, and the judge was very specific about them. Intentional interference with contract against Blake and Ryan, intentional interference with prospective economic advantage, that exists still. And that's against Blake and Ryan. Negligent interference with prospective economic advantage, that's against Blake and Ryan, and breach of the implied duty of covenant of good faith and fair dealing. And those are, that's against Blake. And those claims still exist. The judge just wants us to replead them and gave us a roadmap on how to do that.
So he is planning on refiling those. They are going to amend their complaint. They are still moving forward against Blake and Ryan.
Will you do that?
Of course we'll do that. I mean, for sure. And, as part of doing that also, we're also going to fight her claims, which have existed since the beginning here. And there's been absolutely no indication of any kind that she's prevailing on her claims. As a matter of fact, just the opposite.
You mentioned in June her deposition. What's your strategy for that? What's the key question you want to get her under oath on?
State your name. I want to see if she shows up.
And once she does, what do you do after that?
I'm going to ask her questions under penalty of perjury, and she's going to have to provide evidence, and she's going to have to provide the truth of the stories. And we have all the videotape. We have all the footage. We have, the text messages, and we have emails, and we're going to see how consistent her testimony is with the actual facts of what transpired.
So it sounds like what you are explicitly saying, you don't want everything to go away. You don't want to just say we're done with this. You want to have Justin's name cleared in court, and it's important for you for all this stuff to go forward.
It's not just important for me to have Justin's name cleared in court. It's important for me to have Tag and Jen Abel's names cleared in court. It's important for me to show the truth and to give the clients the real, result that they're looking for, which essentially is what they were accused of, right? There was not sexual harassment here. She wasn't sexually harassed, and there's no smear campaign.
So I'm wondering what Justin's reaction was to the judge's decision.
What was Justin's reaction to it? The same as my reaction to it, which is, it's not fair. It's not right. And the reality is that someone should have a chance to be able to be held accountable. And you should be able to hold media accountable for the truth and veracity or the lack of it of what they show. I think that he's a person who wants to be vindicated. And that's all that he cares about is that he knows who he is. He knows what he's done.
All right, that's just a clip from Freedman's interview on TMZ that basically says they're moving forward with the lawsuit against Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. They're amending their complaint. They have until June 23rd to file their amended complaint. Hopefully, the case moves forward. The judge gave them a little bit of wiggle room. I mean, we broke down yesterday how she got off on the technicality of the CRD of putting her claims in the CRD complaint, which ultimately got the defamation piece of it dismissed. It is not because she's telling the truth. It is not because the judge ruled in favor of her or he believes that Baldoni is a predator in any way. It's strictly because of the protections of the litigation privilege that I believe she knew going into this she would have. I think her team very much analyzed Amber Heard's case and they found out, okay, let's see how we can protect Blake from defamation claims so that she can't be sued the way Amber Heard was sued by Johnny Depp, which was ultimately a big shit show. I think that's also why they filed the CRD complaint instead of an official lawsuit. I think that's why they fought to have this be a Supreme Court case out of New York, because they didn't want cameras in the courtroom. They didn't want this to be live streamed the way that we saw the way that we saw Amber and Johnny. So I think that this was all very masterfully thought out, very similar to how we found out about her shell company Van Zandt and how she obtained Baldoni's text messages without his knowledge was the shady subpoena that they sent to Jones Work PR. And Jones Work PR just willingly handed over all of the correspondence that they will now have to be accountable for because they may have violated Jennifer Abel and Melissa Nathan's invasion of privacy. There may be some sort of breach of contract with Wayfair and Baldoni. So we'll see. I think Stephanie Jones's case is going to be a big one and could very likely get Blake Lively's retaliation claims thrown out because she won't be able to prove retaliation if those that's the most evidence she has, and it's not even strong evidence. So yeah, Gwen says very premeditated. This has been in the making for over a year. I don't know if this was in the making with Baldoni specifically, but it's very clear that Blake Lively thought this through. So that then makes me question, how many times has she thought about this? How many times has she tried to do this to people in the past, her and her husband Ryan Reynolds? If anything, they're being exposed for the snakes that they are. Okay, we're gonna bring on today's special guest in just a sec, and I will welcome him on and we'll discuss it more because Julia Fox she's claiming that she stands with and supports Blake Lively because she supports all women. We'll get into her statement in just a sec, but first, a message from this week's sponsors. You probably heard that RFK Jr., known for his sharp mind and relentless energy on the campaign trail, is taking methylene blue to stay focused, energized, and mentally resilient. Now you can experience those same benefits with Recharge from The Wellness Company. This doctor-formulated nutraceutical is the first to combine methylene blue with urolithin A, creating a unique formula designed to optimize mitochondrial function, improve energy, and elevate cognitive performance. Methylene blue crosses the blood-brain barrier to enhance memory, focus, and executive function by increasing ATP production, the true fuel of our cells. It also works as a potent antioxidant and anti-inflammatory, helping to protect against aging and cellular damage. So if you're looking for a real mental and physical edge, Recharge delivers. Get 15% off plus free shipping. Head to twc.health/nofilter and use code NOFILTER. That's twc.health/nofilter and use promo code NOFILTER for 15% off plus free shipping. Feel the difference. Think clearer. Recharge. All right, I know we've been breaking down all that yummy celebrity legal drama, but I'm pretty sure there are a few PR teams that are hoping that I'll take a break from investigating the drama this summer. But guess what? It ain't gonna happen. I got my Pair eyewear and I am locked and loaded. It takes an eagle's eye to read all these receipts. Pair eyewear has tons of budget-friendly shapes and styles that don't compromise style or quality. Plus, you get 15% off when you go to paireyewear.com and use code NOFILTER. No shade, okay, maybe a little shade, but even when I need some shade, I need to block out the haters and block out the sun outside. I've got these Pair sun tops. Look at this. I could just snap it on and I go from indoor to outdoor, indoor to outdoor. And what I love is that they have a variety of different frames. So if I want to switch up my style, I can do it anytime. Pair has sun tops. They have new tinted lens tops. Also really great. They complement any look so that you can take it from casual to chic, whatever floats your boat this summer. Change it up anytime you'd like with all of Pair's collabs and collections. They have Disney, the Met, Marvel, Star Wars, NBA, NHL if you like hockey. They have premium collections, Suntop Sparkle, classic collections, so many options. Find your perfect frame from home with their virtual try-on option, which is also really cool. You can upload, see your face, try them on online, see how it looks on you before ever making the purchase. It's perfect. I love it. And there are so many great options. You can customize it so that it fits you and you feel like you can mix it up depending on your mood for the day. Keep your eagle eyes looking sharp. Go to paireyewear.com and use code NOFILTER for 15% off your first pair. And support the show by mentioning that No Filter with Zack Peter sent you in your post-checkout survey. That's Pair, P-A-I-R, eyewear.com, code NOFILTER. All right, now let's bring on today's special guest. He is good at firing people up on X. He's good at stirring the pot on Instagram. He's always got hot takes. Today, he's got plenty of hot takes, I'm sure. Please welcome to the convo. You may know him as Shawn on the right. Hey, Shawn.
Hello, how are we?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk through, chat with you today.
So we had obviously Bryan Freedman's come out. They're pursuing their litigation against Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. And after the news of Blake Lively getting the defamation claims against her dismissed, we had Julia Fox, the infamous ex of Kanye West. I would say outside of Bianca and Kim, these are the three that were the most talked about. But Julia Fox has come out. She just issued a new statement at the Tribeca Film Festival telling the Daily Mail, I was very happy to hear the news about Blake Lively because I support women all the time. I support women when they are right. I support women when they are wrong. I support women when they are likable and when they're unlikable. I support women that I have nothing in common with. What is your reaction to the legal drama that's unfolded with Blake and Baldoni and Julia Fox coming to the table saying she believes women all the time, even when they're wrong?
Well, I will tell you the juiciest part of this for me was the Taylor Swift drama, just because I am secretly a major Swiftie. So I've got all my signed CDs back there. So I was definitely drawn in there. But on the point, that I think we're chatting about right now, which is this I support all women unconditionally claim. I think that's the point where I will touch on. I think that it actually hurts the cause for these for women in general when we come out, or for any group, when we come out and we say, I'm going to support this and I'm going to back this individual no matter what, because they are a woman, because they are a gay man, etc. It ends up hurting the cause in the end, because the bad actors come in, right? We saw this with the Amber Heard case. We've seen it many times before, and it harms the actual individuals who have claims here. You know what I mean? So I don't believe in standing for something just because the person is a woman or a man. I do the same thing. You're right. I have fiery takes. That's why I get myself in trouble with the left and the right. It's because I'm not going to just stand and support every single thing that the right has to say. I will call them out when I see them as wrong. I'm not going to defend them ruthlessly. So I think that's it. At the end of the day, this hurts women when we come out and we say we're going to support them and push them forward even when they're wrong.
Yeah, I think we've gone into this culture now where we lack accountability. We don't like to hold people accountable. I opened up on my Instagram yesterday just kind of about how there's this strange, like, I feel like people on the left right now are getting really upset anytime anybody's talking about the climate in Los Angeles right now. And if anybody leans near the narrative of the protests have gotten beyond a peaceful nature, the second you say that, they get so angry and they then want to become upset with you for talking about the rioting. But I was like, hold on, wait a minute, let's back this up 2 steps. Why are you more upset with people that are talking about the riots rather than the people that are committing the riots and that are looting the stores, which I'm watching before my eyes? I live in Los Angeles. I lived through the 2020 BLM riots. We're now in the anti-ICE protest and riots, and I don't think it's unfair to call them riots at this point with the level of destruction that we've seen happen now. It's just these people are hijacking the movement, and so unfortunately, the majority of the public isn't listening to the cause anymore because all they're focused on is the destruction.
Exactly, and I think that's a perfect segue. It's the same. It's the exact same point, right? It's these bad actor individuals who are taking away from the actual true cause that these people, that the other side. Now, this isn't my side that I'm standing for, but the people with legitimate arguments on the other side about immigration. These bad actors have come in and completely destroyed the narrative and ruined it for them, because now the narrative on the right is, look at what they're doing. I mean, it's destructive. It's the what we called the summer of love all over again. It's the BLM. We're gonna riot and destroy everything and loot. And I mean, this caused massive damage. By the way, I think it also did bring harm to the BLM movement. I mean,
1000%. I mean, I think if anything, it had the opposite effect because, I mean, listen, I remember living here in 2020. I lived on Spring Street, which was right down the street from City Hall. I remember people throwing those, what are they called? Molotov cocktails.
yeah.
Yeah, throwing them at our windows. I remember them getting the Lime scooters and banging in our front doors. Now, granted, I don't believe they were trying to break into the residential buildings, but they were just doing it to cause destruction. They were lighting trees and trash cans on fire. They were breaking into the restaurants. They were breaking into every electronics store. Just this week alone, we see that happening again. They broke into the Adidas store. They broke into H&M. They were trying to break into Target. They broke into the Apple store. There are multiple videos of these looters that are coming out now, but we have this narrative that's now coming from Gavin Newsom, and I think it was a very strategic delivery on his end, as I think we're all preparing for him to bid for a presidential run in the next election cycle. But he made it seem like the level of destruction and chaos was only elevated after the National Guard was called in. Now, as somebody that lived through this in 2020, I can say things got really out of hand then. So I understand course correcting ahead of time so that it doesn't escalate to that level. However, if people's response, they think that it's appropriate that the best response to this is to then go and loot the Apple store because they're mad at the president, I don't understand how that helps the cause.
Yeah, I think, well, a couple of things. One, the narrative that you're talking about isn't just coming from Gavin Newsom. It's everywhere in the mainstream media. And this is why I think nationally, mainstream media viewership is down and trust in the media is at an all-time low. You had an ABC correspondent calling the group of people who are burning cars just a couple of people having fun watching cars burn. Then you have Maxine Waters. You have your legislators are coming out also and saying there's nothing happening here. The difference between this and what happened in 2020 with BLM and what happened in the 90s with some of these riots is that everyone has a cell phone in their hand now. And so the media can't curb a narrative and structure a narrative and feed it to the American people the way that they used to, because we have it in the palm of our hands. So you're absolutely right. I think Newsom's criticism of Trump's decision to move in the National Guard and the Marines is definitely a political move, I would say. I'm not exactly sure if it's the right one. It'll be interesting to see. Newsom, if anything, should be, you see him moving more towards the center, as he did with the men and women's sports argument, on his podcast. So this is an interesting move. I think it's it'll be interesting to see how it all ends up playing out. But yes, it's definitely a political move from Newsom.
And it's just like, I feel like the last 5 years were so instrumental into how we got to this position where Trump won again, right? Because I feel like it was with the rioting in 2020, it was with the arguably authoritarian, you know, push of the COVID protocols and the shot that we now, many people raised concerns back in 2020. And now this, all the people that believe the science, I trust science, listen to the scientists, all of a sudden they're fucking blind to the science because now the science has shown that everything that they sold us in 2020 was a crock of bullshit. It was all, and they were censoring it on social media so that you didn't have access to the information, whether it was the Wuhan origin story or whether it was the efficacy and the safety of the shot. We're now seeing, I mean, so much so that it's bleeding. I just saw, my world is obviously a lot more pop culture, but I just saw one of the Real Housewives of New Jersey, Dolores Catania. She was just on Jeff Lewis Live on Sirius XM, and she was talking about how now she and her husband have, or I believe they're engaged, I don't think they're married yet, how they're having new heart conditions, and they were talking to the doctor. The doctor was saying that heart conditions are happening younger and younger, and it is believed to be linked to the shot. And listen, there were conversations about myocarditis that were happening in 2021. Arguably, and this is where I think we need to have accountability on both sides. Arguably, you can say Trump was the one behind the Operation Warp Speed, which I was very much against. But however, the then authoritarian regime of like, you need to get it or you lose your job. You need to show proof of, it's interesting that we needed to show proof of a shot in order to get into a restaurant, but yet we can't show ID if we want to vote in an election. It's so crazy to me, but I'm like, but all of this chain of events happened. I think it really stemmed from 2020 all the way leading up to the 2024 election. And here we are. And I'm just like, how are we not seeing that we're repeating history again? Because as of right now, I don't know a single person that voted for Donald Trump in this past election that severely regrets their vote.
Yeah, I mean, the media has tried to push that narrative. That there's all these people that voted for Trump that didn't know what they were getting. But his approval rating is at an all-time high, and the American people knew what they were getting when they elected Donald Trump. How we got here is interesting. I think that you made a point that I think is worth touching on. There were people at the time, in 2020 who were saying, this shot is causing myocarditis. This is not, you shouldn't be going forward doing this. Don't do it. And then there were people, who were listening to that, and they were saying, I want to hear this information and I want to make the decision for myself. Yeah. I think the problem lies for me. I want to hear both sides of the story. I want to hear the more opinions, the better in my perspective. It was the silencing of those opinions that, we had people losing their YouTube channels that they had built, that they had been building for years and had, hundreds of thousands of subscribers and on Facebook and Meta, just stripping these people of their profiles for in the name of public health. And I think in the name of public health, we should be able to have those conversations the same way that we should be able to have the conversation on immigration. And as you're talking about now, you have, it seems to me to be a repeating story on the right or on the left, where we just want to silence the voice. We don't want to talk about the riots because that's not part of the narrative. And it happens on the right too. I think that's totally fair to say, but I think that's where we can actually bring more accountability, Zach, is when we encourage more discourse and more conversation and more debate as opposed to silence.
Yeah. I want to address this comment from Brigitte Valentine in the live text. She said people need to stop using authoritarian regime when talking about the U.S. LOL, even with the division and riots, the country is free. This is no Iran. Yes, and I want to clarify. I say authoritarian regime, and I say that sarcastically. I'm saying that hyperbolically because that seems to be the narrative from the left, is that what's happening right now is authoritarian. When we fail to acknowledge the chain of events that led to this, right? We fail to acknowledge how the American people lost faith in the Democratic Party and how they came to Trump. And it's like, we don't want to listen to it. So we're doubling down on these things. And then now, we have this narrative that like, we're just going to pretend that cars aren't being lit on fire. I mean, ABC 7 here in Los Angeles, they were running a story and they were just like, it's just a few people, having fun watching a car on fire. And I'm just like, how many cars need to be caught on fire for it to like what is someone came into my DMs yesterday from a foreign country that it doesn't even live in the States or Los Angeles, and they were like, well, but there are always going to be a few bad apples in the bunch. I'm like, hey, well, first of all, a few bad apples kills the whole bunch, number one. And number two, how many apples do we like? How many apples is tolerable? Like, what is the ratio of rioting versus protesting that's a tolerable amount? How many stores need to be looted to where, okay, now it's too much? How many buildings need to be, have fireworks thrown at them? How many cops do we have to spit at before we can say, okay, now maybe it's a bit too much? Like, I just want to know the level, like what the ratio is, so I understand the logic.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've far surpassed that in LA, in my opinion. I mean, you had the mayor coming out, I believe it was today or yesterday, and saying we need people to come together to help clean this mess up now. We need faith leaders and business leaders, and we need everybody, even not the leadership in downtown. We need everybody in LA to come together and help clean this up because the city can't handle it. And the World Cup is coming in a year, and she's concerned that we're not going to be able to clean all this up within a year. And we do know it takes time. I mean, I worked in Minneapolis before, during, and after, the George Floyd incident and the riots that occurred there. And I mean, it still is not rebuilt, to what it was before. So, but just in LA, I mean, you had them. I believe it was like $1.2 million in damage to the Waymo, like autonomous vehicles that they had set on fire. And when you look at the BLM riots, when this gets out of control, that was $2 billion in damage. I mean, and a lot of ripple effects from that too, small businesses that are harmed by that. So this, at the end of the day, it's a couple of bad apples. But it seems to me to be too many bad apples, breaking into Apple stores, etc. It's not one or two people. These are groups of people kind of everywhere. Yeah. So I guess to answer your question, it's too many. It is too many. I think one is too many, but as people get out of hand and I think that's actually why I'm going to jump to this really quick. That's why the BLM was so bad, is because everyone was locked in their houses for a few months. And then it was kind of like, you let when I take my dog out of the crate, she's like going crazy. It's like we were all, held up in our houses, and people were easily hyped up, and that's how things got out of control. And I do think that there are a couple of bad actors, but that ripples into more bad actors, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So one, it's too many.
I agree, and that's why I was like, what is the ratio that is tolerable? Like, what level of rioting is acceptable for us to then be able to have the conversation without being upset with the people that are actually out there rioting and causing destruction, that are taking away from the very important conversation about immigration, which I want to get into. And I think we have BPXL, who made a really good comment saying Barack Obama deployed 1,200 National Guards to the border and firmly said, you will be caught if you come here illegally. The old video is going viral. I've seen the video going around. People forget Obama was one of the strictest on immigration. Bill Clinton, he deported millions of illegal immigrants, way beyond where Trump is at right now. Both Obama and Clinton far surpassed where Trump is at right now. We did not see this level of protests or riots. We didn't see any of this, outrage that we now have, where we now want to take it out on every single armed officer who I arguably would say is out there putting their lives on the risk to try and keep our country safe, because people don't know how to control their own emotions and would rather act out and throw a tantrum in the streets and burn shit down rather than trying to find a productive way to have this conversation. And I'm not excusing ICE either. I think that, we maybe went in a little too hot, a little too fast. I think the approach when we started was, okay, a fair approach. And then we had everybody advocating for Albrego Garcia and get his due process, which now he's getting his due process. Thank you for your fight. But I think this move maybe escalated it to a place where maybe we overstep just a little bit, and that's why we're getting such a polarizing reaction. However, I don't think the reaction is helping the cause.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, and this is actually something that I think you were touching on earlier too, as well, which is how we got here. Well, Obama was, you remember his nickname? He was the deporter in chief. He deported more people than any other president. And Bill Clinton did the same thing. And this was it was commonly agreed upon on both the left and the right that illegal immigration was bad. Now, we used to debate about what to do about the Dreamers and what to do about the Dreamers being, for those listening who aren't up to date or aware, but like the Dreamers are the kids who are born here in the United States and have what's called birthright citizenship. What do we do about those families? Because their parents are here illegally, but they have citizenship. So how do we address that? Those are the things that we used to debate on. And it seems that today the narrative has shifted quite a bit from we're going to deport, Obama being the deporter in chief and that being, a whatever you call it, a badge of honor that he wore, to now it being, this is suddenly, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like that it's cruel. And the narrative has shifted. So I think how we got here is interesting. And I could go into that for hours, but most of it, I think, is that the Democrat Party and the Republican Party both had kind of a reckoning in 2016 when Trump ran and won, because he was not a traditional Republican or he had very liberal views in some ways. So he kind of took, in my view, the best parts of the Republican Party and the best parts of the Democrat Party and built this newfound Republican Party. So I think both parties died in 2016, or they were put on life support. The Republicans just bounced back faster because it was his agenda. I think the Democrats are lost and everything is anti-Trump. And that's why we've moved so far from where we used to stand on immigration and where we did have common ground to today where we are so polarized.
Yeah, because immigration used to be such a big issue in our country, or a big talking point in our country. And I think both sides, when you look at the old clips of Obama's speeches and what helped him get elected, was that he was about being strict on immigration. Hillary Clinton was the exact same thing, and it's just interesting that the left has now moved into this anti-Trump. I didn't believe TDS. Listen, I voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. I voted for Joe Biden in 2020. And I just feel like the last 5 years, just seeing the level of manipulation from the mainstream media, or how much I was always on the team of like, Trump can do a lot of bad shit, but when we then lie about the shit that he's doing, then I no longer lose faith in you. And I will trust the person that, at least is going to be radically honest to my face, rather than the people that are lying to me and trying to gaslight me into believing that they're the ones that are working towards the greater mission. I think at some point you do have to find a way to meet in the middle, because we only have two parties and you have to pick one side or the other. And I feel like the second I step, an inch to the right, the left immediately wants to demonize me and call me a maggot and call me all these names, and I'm racist and homophobic and all these things. I'm a self-hating, gay person, whatever they want to call me. But I feel like the opposite is what's happened on the right. I feel like, if I step an inch to the left, they're like, listen, I may not agree with you. Or, even the religious extremists that are on the conservative side, they are, I was surprised because I was always raised to believe that they hated gay people. But they're like, listen, when you actually have conversations with them, they're like, I may not agree with your lifestyle because my religion tells me one thing. And then you'll have Christians that feel very differently. But even the ones that are considered these extremists kind of come to a level where they're like, listen, I may not agree with you and your lifestyle, but I'm not going to try and police you or tell you that you're a good person or a bad person or whatever. You do you, and I'm going to go and pray to Jesus every day. And I'm like, okay, cool. I can see you for where you're at, and we can meet at that place. We're never going to see eye to eye on everything, but there's just a different level of respect that I've noticed in talking to both sides over these last 5 years.
Well, and I think that all of this, Zach, is all of this, the TDS, the silence. This is why the silencing, and this goes back to the COVID point that we were talking about earlier, but silencing voices is just as harmful as calling those voices Nazis and homophobic and white supremacists, etc. I will say, like, I have met many. I went to the RNC. I met just about every single Republican anybody in the Republican Party that had anything to do with politics, had any ounce of power. And I've maybe had 2 or 3 conversations where someone has told me that they don't agree with my lifestyle. Most of them say, if you're not messing with me, my family, my kids, and my property, I don't really care. Versus what in my experience, I constantly get from the right is that I'm homophobic, and I'm like, I'm gay. I'm just trying to be happy with my boyfriend. I'm not homophobic. So it's, and I'm a white supremacist and all these things, and it's just simply not the case. But it's that exact same, that's what further drives us and polarizes us into 2 separate directions. And that's how I think that we got here.
Yeah. And also, I want to, just piggybacking off of our conversation about immigration, I think one thing that makes our country so great is that we are a melting pot of different cultures, and everybody of all cultures are welcome to come here and pursue the American dream. That's what people come here for with the better life argument. They're coming here for a better life. What is that better life? The American dream, that they can come here and build a life from scratch and be successful and thrive, outside of where they're coming from. So to me, I think immigration is so important to our country. And I think if we stop and pause and realize, like, listen, actually people that are on the right, including this current administration, are not anti-immigrant, but they are, about having a immigration process that, is just and is, obviously not what it's been for the last 4 years. I think we opened the floodgates and made a mess of the immigration policies. And now, unfortunately, we're in this place of having to course correct. Now, I think we may have went a little too fast, a little too soon, considering I don't think all of the country was ready for that radical shift. I'm in favor of, getting stricter immigration. I voted for stricter immigration policies. I'm all in favor of that, but I know that not everybody is on the same page that I think, majority of Americans may have been when they placed their vote back in November. And so there are going to be some people that you're going to get some resistance from, but I don't think that turning into chaos and extremism and hysterics is necessarily the way to be heard. We learned that from 2020.
I don't think that it helps. I don't think that it helps solely because it distracts us from the actual conversations that we should be having. Like, I would love to have a debate with anyone about how exactly we approach this situation. But we can't have that conversation because it's the left yelling at the right and the right yelling at the left. And it's all about riots. It's not actually about immigration. But I think what you touched on is, you're talking about the American dream. And I think that what I would be remiss if I don't make this point, but why does everyone want to come here and have this American dream and have this better future? And we talk about all these things. They're here for a better life. Well, why? Well, because our country is greater than theirs. Our systems work better. They're fair. They're balanced. Everyone has equal opportunities. And we have to protect that. And that's why we vet individuals before we give them citizenship and entry into our country. And that is exactly what you were touching on that didn't happen. And that's why these are the bad apples that came across the border. And now you push the right even further to say, well, look at Blake and Ryan, look at Rachel Moran, look at these situations that are in fact horrible situations, should not have happened. But it doesn't necessarily paint a picture of who all of the immigrants coming into the country are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, going back to Obama, I think so many people are so upset with Tom Homan, who's our current border czar, and they forget he also worked for Obama. He received, what was it, the Presidential Rank Award as a distinguished executive from President Obama in 2015. So, the person that we have in play, like, if you were in favor of Obama's immigration policies, then there's no reason you should not be in favor of Trump's immigration policies. Again, we unfortunately opened up the floodgates and really made a mess of our immigration system. I believe in the importance of immigrants in our country. I believe that they provide value. Hello, you're looking at a Hispanic man right here, a Hispanic gay man, and I don't identify solely as Hispanic or gay. Those are just footnotes of who I am as a person. And I don't like that, people often get put in these boxes of their ethnic background or of their sexuality or however they want to identify. But I think that, there's a reason we've had this growth in Latinos for Trump, right? Is because there are so many. And listen, when you actually stop and talk, and that's what I spent the last 5 years doing, was talking to people on all sides of the political spectrum, specifically immigrants. And I saw their frustrations with saying, listen, I came here and I did this the right way. I came here and I got my citizenship. Was it easy? No, but I was in pursuit of the American dream and I wanted to buy into that. And so I came here for a better life and I worked for that better life. I didn't come here looking for handouts. I didn't come here to be entitled. I didn't come here and settle here for 20 years knowing the risks of what it would mean to be undocumented. I also know those families that I went to school with. I mean, listen, I grew up in East LA. I knew family whose kids whose families or parents were undocumented, and the fear that they lived in every day. That fear would not exist if you didn't know that you were doing something that could potentially get you deported. People know the risks, right? And I think there needs to be some level of accountability for that as well. I think we should let in properly and appropriately and in, margins, people that need to come here and want a better life, especially people that are seeking asylum. It wasn't until I really stopped and started listening to interviews with Tom Homan and listened to how much our asylum process is so broken and how 9 out of 10 people that apply for asylum here in the US don't actually need it and are blocking the channels for people that really do need it. And that's where our immigration process is so clogged.
Yeah, well, I mean, that right there is that was I guess the loophole. I don't necessarily want to call it a loophole, but that's kind of how most of these individuals were getting in. They were abusing a system that was built for people who were actually seeking asylum from prosecution, from they're running away from these countries where they're being wrongly, unjustly prosecuted, or they're being targeted, or they're trying to escape, gang violence and things like that. And we got to a point where basically everyone just requests asylum and they just make claims. And now we have to we were to a point where people were getting their asylum claims, their court dates for asylum, 10 years from when they came in. Like, they're literally handing you a card that says show up in court in 2032 and 2038 on this day at this time. And it's like, I don't even know if the building's still going to be there in 2038. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So we need to amend the asylum process in this country. Sure. I don't have all the answers, but those are the conversations that we should be having. Like, we should actually be talking right now about, if these riots weren't happening, we probably could sit down and have a conversation about how do we approach the people who have been living here for 25 years, have never committed a crime while they've been living here, but are here illegally? What do we do about it? Like, that's a conversation that I would love to have. But unfortunately, with the way that we have become so polarized today, and it'll be interesting to see what happens after Trump leaves office. But with how polarized we are today, it's really challenging to actually sit down and come to find common ground and debate the issues, because we're just so radical. It's radical opposition on both sides.
On both sides. Yeah, I agree. And it's on both sides. I know sometimes I can be critical of the left a little more than I am of the right, but I also want people to remember I've had this show for 10 years and I've been very critical of the right over the years when appropriate. Enrique wrote, let me say this. I'm gay. I live in the Dominican Republic, and gay marriage is not legal, but there's LGBTQ plus representation in every radio and TV channel. The fact is that the United States is fine. You guys are fine. So, being that we're both gay, I want to touch on that, but I also want to touch on the fact that I think I was having a conversation with someone, and I have a lot of conversations with people that were very liberal, that are becoming more in the center. And I feel like, again, year after year, it's coming more and more that people are abandoning the Democratic Party. And I feel like people that are so diehard to the Democratic Party just don't want to let go and don't want to look inward or have any level of self-reflection. But I was having a conversation with someone, and she was raising concerns about the radicalization of college students and how they're so young. And I was like, you know what? I think it's a much bigger conversation about how I think our country has moved into such a level of privilege. I mean, if you really think about it, like, let's compare our country, compare it to Palestine, right? Like, we can compare it to so many other countries. You can't say what's happening in Los Angeles and Gaza are even comparable, right? You will be prosecuted if you are in Palestine for being gay. We've gotten to such a place of privilege, and we're not fighting for women's rights, the right to vote. We're not fighting for, to abolish segregation. We're not fighting for the right to marriage. And I know people want to scare and be like, Project 2025, it's coming. The gay concentration camps are coming. I'm still waiting for those to start. But my thing is, we've gotten to such a place of privilege and of having so many basic human rights that we're then now finding ways to marginalize ourselves. We're finding ways to make ourselves victims. I'm waiting for the basic human rights for celiacs to come out next. Like, where's that organization going to start up? Like, we're finding every little thing that we're unhappy with. Like, when, we're fighting over bathrooms and we're calling that basic human rights. Like, it's so preposterous to me that we've got, or pronouns are the biggest, issue for the LGBTQIA2 plus community. Like, we have forgotten how far we've come. And so we're just looking for new ways to make us feel like we're victims in the world.
While simultaneously screaming about how, like, these are human rights and we have to save them, and my pronouns and this, that, and the other, while, like, people actually were fighting for equality 15 years ago, so, like, we achieved gay marriage. And I think that, to be frank, like, I think that after we had gay marriage, there was this spiral. I'm not exactly, I'm not going to speculate on what or how it happened, but it seemed to me like, maybe all of these gay rights organizations were like, we did it. What do we do now? And you're totally right. Like, at the end of the day, we have equal rights. Like, I can't think of a single thing that I can't do that any of my straight brothers, any of my straight friends can't do. So, and that's also why, too, we saw, now you'll see reports that say that Trump lost the LGBT vote in the last election. In 2016, he had 14% of the LGBT vote. In 2020, he doubled it. It was 28%. Now, all of these reports today, it's very hard to get at this data, but they say that he lost support. What I actually think happened is that basically everyone now identifies as part of the LGBTQ LMNOP QRSTUV, community. So I think that the community just dramatically grew. But from what I can tell, when we look at data, Trump grew. The Republicans continue to grow in support, particularly in the LGB sector. I can't, it's almost impossible to get at the data for the T's and the Q's, but the Republicans in general have kind of accepted gay marriage. They stopped opposing it. They took it out of the RNC platform. Trump did. He took it out of the RNC platform, which is why it's just so crazy to me, too, that he's like the most anti-gay, homophobic president ever, but he's constantly surrounded by gays. Everyone that works on his campaign is gay. He appointed the first ever gay member of the cabinet, Rick Grinnell. So it's, the Republicans have really become, under Donald Trump's leadership, like the common sense party. And I think you're right. We're creating narratives, and I don't even know, creating narratives to force ourselves into victimhood. And that has been something that in the past, I'm going to say maybe 10 years, we've really seen exaggerated. I'm not sure. I'll add one more thing here. If you've heard of, I think it's called the Universe 20 5 experiment. And it basically was this, I think it was Harvard did this study where they gave a group of rats all the food that they needed. They didn't have to search for it. They had everything that they needed and wanted. And then they gave a control group where they still had to go and search for their food, etc. And the rats that they gave everything to and they didn't have anything to fight for went crazy and they started going nuts. So I think that there is something to that where once we achieved this full equality and honestly prosperity in this country, we started going a little crazy.
I agree. And I think it's a place of, what was our favorite word in 2020? Privilege. And it's not just white privilege. I think we're very privileged in this country. And I think that's why so many immigrants want to come into our country. And I think that that's an incredible thing. We are a country that is built on variety, that's built on diversity, that's built on the importance of people with multicultural backgrounds that come together in this incredible melting pot. I'm not against immigration at all, but I do think we broke the system and it needs to be fixed. There are repairs that need to be made. We need to modernize it. We need to streamline it, but we also need to course correct with how much we broke the system within the last 4 years specifically.
Well, I think too, this is a point that I don't think gets talked about enough. And this is probably one that you may never even have heard because nobody listens to me when I say this, but we should be taking the best and brightest from these countries, but we shouldn't be taking all of them. The way that our immigration system works today is everybody in the world from these even third world countries, you have people in these third world countries that are genuinely very intelligent people. They're the leaders in their spaces, and they all want to come to the United States. And what do? We let them, and they come here instead of staying where they are and helping the people where they are. So, there's if you haven't seen, you should go watch it. It's the Gumball immigration argument. It's from probably like 20 years ago, but we will never be able to help these third world countries from here. We can't solve that problem with immigration because we can't move all of these people into the United States. So we want some of those people who are the best and the brightest to stay where they are and uplift the people and the societies and the communities where they are. So we want to take some of them, but just because they're the best and brightest doesn't necessarily mean that we want, a full-blown open gate. Anyone with an IQ over this, we should just let in. If we want to solve actual world problems, we also should recognize that some of those people should stay there and be leaders in their spaces.
Yeah. Yoya says, I think you guys need to move to red states and then spew your positions of equality and things being amazing. Nice to hold those views living in California. So, Shawn, you do not live in California.
No, I live in the red-ish state of North Carolina. We consistently vote red for president, but we vote blue for governor, which is very odd to me. But yes, and I come from Pennsylvania, which was a blue state, but I've moved all around, so I can tell you I experienced it on both sides.
Yeah. All right. Well, any other closing thoughts, feelings, vibes?
No, I think in general, like what I hope that this got across is that we need to be focused more on actually talking about the problem and solutions over letting these issues spiral out of hand. And I think that the other thing that's worth noting is that most of us probably sit somewhere in the 80% in the middle. And we have a lot more that we agree on than we disagree on. But we are never going to find that out if we can't have the conversations because we believe the people on the other side are either woke and crazy or radical white supremacists. So we need to have more conversations, more debates.
And I think that's kind of where I came on my political journey. I mean, I don't even like to call it political. It's just, and how I've grown or matured over the last 5 years is I stopped and started having conversations with people that I was scared to have conversations with, and then realized, oh, holy shit, these people aren't as scary as I thought they were. They aren't filled with hatred as much as I was told to believe that they were. Even listen, as much as people may like or dislike the current president, even there were so many things that I was conditioned or tricked into believing about this man that I then realized were completely false. You know, the number of inaccuracies that were reported in the media that have since been debunked and disproven, I was shocked. You know, when you watch things in their full context rather than a soundbite or a small clip that gets circulated and blown up all over the news. I think, you know, we've talked a lot about Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds and Justin Baldoni and how the pop culture media is favorable to Blake Lively. And it's so wild. And I see so many people in my comments and live chat that get infuriated with the manipulation of the headlines, and I'm like, but guys, that happens on a such grander scale that we need to take a beat and just take a step back and be willing to have these conversations.
And Zach, I think that's why it's important that you're doing what you're doing, and also why I'm doing what I'm doing. Is we are at a place where technology has advanced us to the point where we don't have to be spoon-fed narratives from basically 5 people in the country. 5 editors of these like 5 major organizations get to decide what the narrative is. And now we're at a place where we get to dig into those narratives, look at the facts, and share them with the people. So I think that's why it's important that you're doing what you're doing, particularly here, but in general, that we've gotten here.
Listen, it's no filter, and it's no filter for a reason. People, I feel like in the last year have been like, why have you gotten more political? And you used to only talk about pop culture. And then I went back and watched the first episode of No Filter from 10 years ago. And I remember at that time, in the first episode, one of the conversations that came up was about Hillary Clinton's potential run for president. This was in 2015, and whether or not, is she going to run? Isn't she going to run? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? That was literally episode 1, April of 2015. And I listened to my opening in that episode, and I said, I'm going to be here every week talking about everything from what's hot in politics to Bruce Jenner's 50 Shades of Nail Polish. Because at that time, Bruce had not become Caitlyn. Bruce was still having secret surgeries, and the nails were painted, and the hair was weird. And, you know, he was getting a little nose job here and there. And this was way before Bruce ended up becoming Caitlyn Jenner. And it was just crazy to think that like these were always the conversations. This was always the cornerstone of this show. You know, there have been times where, you know, the show has delved more into maybe the fluffier pop culture topics, but there's always been a true core of like whatever's relevant at the moment in our culture has been a discussion on the show.
Yeah, politics bleeds into fashion, it bleeds into pop
does.
culture, it bleeds, these things don't coexist or, exist in separate buckets. They coexist, and they feed into each other. So props for you for bringing it all together. And it's like you said, it's no filter for a reason.
Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you for being willing to have a conversation. Thank you for being, willing and accepting of the potential beating in the live chat. I'm surprised most people, I feel like, stayed very respectful, which I appreciate. I think I've curated a much more understanding and savvy and respectful audience that can have discourse in a respectful way.
I love it. And I love to see it. Like I said, we need to have more conversations. We agree on more than we disagree on. So
absolutely. Your handle is Shawn on the right. So if anybody wants to go and follow you, you're on X, you're on Instagram, you're on TikTok.
Yep, that's right. Shawn on the right.
Shawn on, and Shawn is SHAWN, not SEAN.
Yep.
SHAWN. Shawn on the right. Go give him a follow. You'll have to come back when there's another riot. Please do.
I definitely will. Thanks for having me, Zack.
Thanks, Shawn. Have a good one.
You too.
All right, guys, don't forget to get your tickets. The Zactivated Tour kicks off this summer. Dallas, Phoenix, Philly, Toronto, Brooklyn, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Seattle. You can get your tickets now for more unfiltered, fun, in-person, on stage. We can do shots together. We can have drinks together. If you get your tickets and send me your order confirmations by this Sunday, then I will definitely enter you to win a backstage drink with me before the show. We'll get to hang. We'll have a cocktail. I'll bring you backstage of the show. It'll be a good time. So the coffee date giveaway has ended, but we are now doing a pre-show cocktail. So if you want to hang out with me, get your tickets, grab your friends, wear your florals, come on out to the Zack Debated Tour. I'll be in Dallas, July 11th, Phoenix, July 13th, Philly, July 23rd, Toronto, July 24th, Brooklyn, July 26th, Chicago, July 27th, Seattle, August 8th, and Los Angeles, August 10th. Get your tickets now at nofilterlive.com. Lisa says she can't wait for the Phoenix show. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Judge Judy would be so cool. I would love Judge Judy. Thanks, Zack, for another amazing show. Michelle said, did you pick the coffee date winners? I was supposed to pick them over the weekend. I did not. Sorry. It's just been a bit cuckoo crazy. But with Sully and everything, like things have just been a little chaotic, especially in downtown these last few days, and just work has been extremely busy. But I promise I will pick those winners. You're all entered. Don't worry. I have all the entries. I just have to randomly go in there and boop, 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 pick 3 and va, va, boom. I was Sully. He's not too much better, but he's not worse. And also, guys, remember, all merch purchased this week, 50% of the proceeds will be donated to Home Life Community, and specifically our Justice for Justin shirts. 100% of the proceeds, 100% of my proceeds, I will be donating to the No More organization, nomore.org, which is to bring awareness and support to end DV and SV. So Justice for Justin shirts you can get in at the merch shop, nofiltermerch.com. All right, guys, I love you. I appreciate you. Give me a follow at Just Plain Zack. Follow the podcast at No Filter with Zack on Instagram. You can follow Shawn at Shawn on the right. Again, Shawn is spelled SHAWN. Shawn on the right. You can give him a follow. He's got lots of hot takes. So if you like some of his takes here on the show today, he's got a lot more of them on his social accounts. So show him some love. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. All right. Love you. Appreciate you. Have a great rest of your day. Ciao for now.